Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Georgia Waters about Reginald the Vampire on Syfy. Welcome back to the show. It's so good to see you.
Hey, it's so good to be back. Thanks for having me.
It's pretty crazy because there's waves of announcements with shows. Like there's announcements that, Jacob Batalon is going to star in Reginald the Vampire. Then it's added cast, including yourself and Emily Hain. And then there's trailer release dates. Has it hit you that people can finally see it?
I know. A little bit. It's quite funny when it's suddenly, because you start the process so long ago. I think it was we started filming a year ago, and now suddenly people are able to watch it. It is quite surreal, but also lovely. It's so nice seeing the hard work pay off, and suddenly people can enjoy the world that we created.
I think people were kind of keen from seeing the trailer that it's got kind of the thriller horror kind of components because it's spooky season and vampires, but it's funny, it's over the top, it's chaotic. Did the genre bending component of this draw you towards it, script wise when you were reading it?
Yeah. Well, this is my first. It's comedy drama, but I've not done comedy before. Everything I've done is quite serious. So that really appealed to me, getting to play and lean into the comedy element more. A lot of my remit has been horror, kind of the world of drama anyway. So it was really nice being able to do that in a new twist with.
You did a movie about evil toys? I had no idea.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but diving into the comedy is refreshing, right? Because you're used to these kind of dark worlds. Absolutely.
It is, and being on set and being able to play with that more is really enjoyable, and hopefully making people laugh, because we were laughing as we were doing it. So hopefully that will translate.
What can you tell us about it's out now, people can check out kind of the episodes, people see the trailer, but what can we expect from your angle, your character specifically, with everything happening with Reg specifically?
Well, so in the first episode, and it's not a spoiler, my character is inadvertently involved in turning Reginald into a vampire because I play Penelope. She's your stereotypical vampire, and she is quite mischievous and enjoys creating a little bit of chaos. So she snacks on Maurice's new friend, and they don't clean up their mess, which means that he was able to be turned into a vampire. Leader, very angry. And so then throughout the season, it's my character trying to help clear up that mess and try and get the leader, Angela, back on my side so I can be in her good books, because really I think I'm vying for her approval, and I want to make sure that
Did you audition for Penelope? Did you audition for Penelope?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I auditioned for Penelope.
I feel like you never know sometimes. I feel like one time I made the mistake once and assumed that someone auditioned for it. And then my question was what was your preparation wise, audition wise? And then they were well, I actually did audition for the character that I got. I was oh man, this whole
Yeah.
So you did audition for her, absolutely.
I did, but she was originally going to be French, so I did a tape in a French accent.
Okay.
But then I was like, well, she's called Penelope. That sounds quite English. I'm English. That could work in my for my benefit. So then I did a version of her being English, and I think the director and producer were like, hold on, this is a great twist for the character Penelope, and they really leaned into that and were like, okay, we're gonna play with the costumes, make it leaning into the Britishness, the Victorianness. So I guess once I was cast, it kind of carved out Penelope in a new version.
That's so interesting. It's like you made it your own a little bit, just kind of.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
that's awesome. I find it interesting because there's a lot of content in the vampire sphere right now, George. There's a lot of stuff. It's hot.
It is.
Horror is hot, but specifically vampire is hot. It's like a couple of years ago, like when the start of the pandemic, when hot sauce was like a big trend. Remember that?
Yeah.
Everyone, it's everything.
You know, there must be something in the water.
So here's my question then. Is there, I wouldn't say pressure, but is there kind of overwhelming feelings in terms of like working on a project, like a vampire project with the landscape, or does the excitement overcome the overwhelming aspect of it?
I think the excitement overcomes it. I mean, when I was working on it, I was definitely, there are aspects that was nerve-wracking because when you're working in this genre, sometimes, you know, with like the biting scenes when there's a lot of blood involved, you can't do too many takes because the reset takes too long sometimes. And there were other scenes, not to give any spoilers, where they were just like, we could only have one take.
Yeah.
So you have to go being like, I've got to nail it. So there's definitely that nerve-wracking element to it. But in terms of the landscape of lots of vampire stuff appearing right now, I think that's great because it builds excitement and it kind of opens this world, but also it allows us to put our mark in that genre and world in a different way, because I think that Reginald the Vampire doesn't take itself seriously. It's a different slant on the vampire world, and it questions what we think that world should be.
Yeah.
And also
Totally.
vampires on a pedestal and glamorizing them. I think this kind of takes that apart and be like, maybe they're not so great.
That's very well said. And I find it interesting because it's got like the kind of horror thriller, like tropes in the show, of course, right? And like the horror fan's gonna eat it up. But like the comedy like stood out definitely for me when I was watching it. And it's like spooky season and everything. But is it interesting to think of like you'll have the horror fans watch it, but you'll have someone who's just wants to watch a good laugh also watch it? It's like two audiences, right?
I hope so. As you say, it gives a bit for everyone. Those that want the horror and the like delights in the vampire world, you have got that. But then you've also got Reginald, who's this heartwarming, charismatic character who I think just we all root for him, and we want him to fall in love with himself as much as we are in love with him. You
worked on a show called Siren.
Yes, I did.
Which was about kind of mystical creatures, mermaids. You're working on, Reginald the Vampire, about like the mystical vampires. I think there's a trend going on here where you like.
Definitely is. I think I need to write a list of all the mythical creatures and be like, okay, I haven't done this one yet.
I think those are exciting worlds to dive in because the possibilities are endless if you think about it.
There are. And I think, it taps into all of our imaginations, and it means that the rules of our world don't exist in those worlds, so you can create whatever you want to create, which I think is why we're so drawn to it. It's the ultimate form of escapism, because as I said, the rules don't apply, so you can make up what you want to.
Besides her being a vampire and kind of what you said a little bit, like what is something about Penelope that really like kind of drives you towards this character? Is there a specific kind of element you like about her personality? Is there anything like besides her being a vampire?
Yeah.
Is there?
when I auditioned, the sides were just her. It was her seducing Reginald and going in for the kill. But so originally it was just like, oh, she's like dark and dangerous. But then when I read her kind of character arc throughout the season, you see that actually she's just as flawed as any human. All she wants is to impress her leader. She wants to be part of a troop. She makes a lot of mistakes, and I think that kind of appealed to me as someone who's so desperate to impress that actually they do everything wrong.
It's so funny because it's like she's not real because she's a vampire, but she's very real because she makes a lot of mistakes and has like faults.
Exactly.
That's interesting, right?
And just like the rest of us, she just wants to, to be accepted. And I think that's kind of at the root of the show is, what we would do to be accepted by those around us.
I've given you a lot of questions that I'm hoping like you weren't asked like 100 times, but I'm gonna give you the one question that like when you do Reginald the Vampire like interviews, you're probably gonna be asked this a lot, but I just want to know, what was it like working with Jacob specifically?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
But I mean, such a dream. I've only got great things to say about Jacob. He was so relaxed, so chill. Because it's long days, and we were doing long nights.
A lot of night shoots on this specifically. Yeah.
And it was cold, but he always kept the atmosphere light. Always made sure that we weren't getting too the atmosphere wasn't getting too low. He was always good at right. Okay, let's do this. And just so approachable, there was no element of like, oh, I'm Jacob, the separation. Very much like, oh no, we're doing this show together, and it was so much fun as well.
And the episodes are rolling out because of it's on Syfy, which is cool. It's cool because there's like the week to week drop and then the binge drop. Which one do you what do you prefer? I feel like there's a world for both, to be honest with you.
There is, definitely. I think the week to week builds that excitement of like, oh, we've got to wait. But then sometimes part of me is like, well, maybe I'll wait for it all to come out and then binge it all. Yeah. Especially, I guess, the holiday period when, you've got long stretch of time, dark nights. We all want something to entertain ourselves with.
I thought you were going to say sink our teeth into.
I know,
I saw that.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
I feel like you were like going to say, I feel like you were going to make a vampire pun there, and then like we both chuckled.
Good one.
Georgia, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back on Popternative. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you. No, it's been really fun.
Reginald the Vampire on Syfy. Your Instagram, I believe, is Georgia Scarlet Waters. I could be wrong, but is that's your? It's like underscores.
It is. Which actually, Scarlet Waters is like blood, so very fitting. Waters was Siren, and now it's Scarlet of the.
Yeah, absolutely. So they could keep up to date with it. Yeah, that's on Instagram. And awesome. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Look out for Georgia Waters as Penelope in Reginald the Vampire on Syfy. Until next time, this is Georgia Waters and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.